Assalamu alaikum, students. We are going to read this whole page that is being displayed on screen. Let's start. Astrajan, why me? Again, a question, WH interrogative. Astrajan is questioning why he should be the one involved. The short question immediately shows hesitation and unwillingness. He's showing hesitation. He's hesitating. He's not willing to do. Vladimir says, you are lighter than I am. Vladimir is very, very intelligent, and what he does, he gives a practical explanation, a practical reasoning that why he should be. And his explanation is based on physical weight. Who has less weight is the most appropriate person. His response treats the issue logically and mechanically. It is not illogical, it is not irrational. Astrajan says, just so. Astrajan's response is quick, prompt, immediate, as if Vladimir has confirmed his own point. This phrase sounds satisfied, but also ironic. Vladimir says, I don't understand. So here Vladimir is admitting confusion. Even after explaining, he fails to follow Astrajan's reasoning. Astrajan says, use your intelligence, can't you? Now, Astrajan becomes impatient. And in his impatience, he tells Vladimir to think for himself. This line also introduces frustration into the exchange. Vladimir uses his intelligence. The stage direction turns thinking into visible action. It presents reasoning almost mechanically. Vladimir finally, I remain in the dark. After thinking, Vladimir still cannot understand. He's unable to decipher it. He's not able to comprehend it. The phrase remain in the dark suggests failure to reach clarity. Astrajan says, this is how it is. He reflects. He bow, then ellipses, the bow, then the bow, ellipses, the bow, ellipses. Astrajan begins explaining slowly and hesitantly. The repetition shows he is trying to organize the idea while speaking when he says the bow, the bow. So he's facing the same problem as the same problem that Vladimir was facing in the beginning or previously. Angrily, use your head, can't you? His frustration increases because Vladimir still does not understand. He's not getting his point. Vladimir says, you are my only hope. Vladimir replies dependently. He's showing dependence. Instead of solving the problem himself, he relies entirely on Astrajan's explanation. He needs his explanation to solve the problem. Astrajan, go light, bow not break, go dead, diddy heavy, bow break, diddy alone. Whereas, and then line. Communication finishes. So see this broken structure. All the phrases are simplified, but they are broken. Explanation is broken. It is distorted. He compares two possible outcomes based on weight. The unfinished, whereas, shows the explanation stopping before full completion. Vladimir says, I hadn't thought of that. So here Vladimir finally understands the point. The line acknowledges delayed realization. Estrogen, if it hangs you, it'll hang anything. Estrogen reduces the argument to a blunt conclusion. He says that if it bears you, it can bear anything. The statement dismisses further calculation. Calculation stops here. So Vladimir says, but am I heavier than you? Even after the explanation, Vladimir is introducing another uncertainty. The discussion returns to doubt, to confusion. Estragen says, so you tell me, I don't know, there's an even chance, or nearly. Estragen answers uncertainly. The phrase I don't know or nearly, both phrases weaken certainty and keep the issue unresolved, not concluded. Vladimir, well, what do we do? Vladimir moves from discussion to decision making. He's asking about decision. What should they do? The question seeks action after prolonged uncertainty. There has been no action. Estragen says, don't let do anything, it's safer. Estragen responds by rejecting action completely. He does not want any action. He does not want to do any action. He does not want to move. Safety becomes the reason for inaction. They always give certain reason for inacting, for not doing anything. They try to justify or they try to give a justification. Vladimir, let's wait and see what he says. Vladimir is proposing postponement instead of decision. Again, they move, they show intention to do certain action, but both are still not doing anything. Rather, they're justifying their delay. So action is delayed until someone else speaks. Strajan, who? Strajan asks for clarification. He continues a pattern of interrupted understanding. He does not focus, and then he interrupts. He interrupts for clarification, but he does not get clear answer. Vladimir Godot, the answer identifies a person whose arrival may determine action. Let Godot come. Then we'll do certain action, and then we'll do something. Strajan, good idea. Strajan immediately agrees. The response is simple and unexamined. Vladimir says, let's wait till we know exactly now how we stand. Now Vladimir is justifying waiting through the desire for certainty. They need to be certain. The phrase suggests they currently lack clear understanding. Estragen says, on the other hand, it might be better to strike the iron before it freezes. Now, Estragen promptly, suddenly, abruptly changes direction. Instead of waiting, he gives a suggestion that they should act quickly. This line provides us a contrast with his earlier support for delay. Before he was delaying, and now he's ready to do action. Vladimir, I'm curious to hear what he has to offer. Then we'll take it or leave it. Vladimir returns to waiting and expectation. He imagines future choice, but only after hearing from Godot first. Now, themes with examples. You see, one of the themes is uncertainty here. It is shown through repeated doubt and changing conclusions. You see, Vladimir says, I remain in the dark, while Estragen repeatedly weakens certainty with phrases like, I don't know, and or nearly. Dependence is also a theme used here, shown here, presented here, especially in Vladimir's line. You are my only hope. Instead of solving problems independently, he relies on Strajan's explanation. He needs his explanations. Failure to reach clear understanding is another theme, third theme here. It appears throughout the exchange, even after Strajan explains the situation of the bow. Vladimir still asks, but am I heavier than you? This keeps the discussion unresolved. There is also a strong theme of inaction and postponement. Strajan says, don't do anything, it's safer, while Vladimir proposes, let's wait and see what he says. Action is repeatedly delayed if you observe. Shifting opinion and inconsistency also exist as a theme here in this passage, in this page. Strategian first agrees with waiting by saying Godot, good idea, but later he changes direction and he says it might be better to strike the iron before it freezes. And the last theme is decision depending on someone who is not present, who is absent. It appears in the repeated focus on Godot. They've been depending on Godot. They've been talking about Godot, and they're depending upon him, upon his arrival, upon his advice. Vladimir is refusing final action until we know exactly how we stand through hearing what God has to say. So let's talk about techniques. If you see, Beckett is using short, fragmented dialogue to create broken communication. If you see the lines such as why me, who, and good idea, all these phrases keep exchanges brief and incomplete. Beckett is also using repetition here, especially when we read the bow, and repeated. Basically, it shows repeated uncertainty. It shows repetition. And we also find phrases like I don't know. It also shows confusion, doubt, not clarity. The repetition slows the conversation. It emphasizes difficulty in reaching clarity. If you see another technique, that is broken and simplified speech. You can see that in Strajan's explanation when he says go light, bow not break, go dead, not complete sentences. Here, if you see the sentence structure, it becomes reduced and mechanical. Beckett also implies stage direction to clarify the meaning. When he writes, Vladimir uses his intelligence. Here, thinking is presented almost physically. It makes reasoning appear deliberate and awkward. Contrast is also used here as a technique. Very effective technique, impactful. And it is very significant, particularly when the contrast is shown between action and inaction. Vladimir asks, what do we do? And Strajan answers, don't let's do anything. So contrast action and inaction. The technique of unfinished speech appears in whereas and then the line, where Strajan's explanation stops before completion. He does not complete his explanation. He leaves it in the middle. He leaves it vague. Question and answer structure. It is also prevalent almost everywhere in the whole play. The answers often create more uncertainty rather than resolution. They don't provide resolution, they don't conclude it. Rather, they create more uncertainty and confusion and doubt. And if you see, when Vladimir asks, "But am I heavier than you?" So you see that it is creating uncertainty, it is creating doubt. And another theme is shifts in direction. The shifts in direction basically shape the dialogue. Estrogen first supports waiting with good idea, but later he proposes immediate action by saying strike the iron before it freezes. These shifts basically prevent stable decision making. That's why we find instability in their decisions. And I must say that even they don't decide, what they decide is only one thing, that is inaction. So let me critically analyze these lines, this page. If you see, the conversation is moving between attempted reasoning and continued uncertainty. Astrajan is trying to explain the situation logically, but his explanation remains fragmented, remains incomplete. They do not provide justification or a satisfying explanation. Vladimir's repeated confusion shows, and it also slows the dialogue and prevents quick understanding. There's delay in understanding because of Vladimir's repeated confusion. Here, Vladimir looks more confused. Even after the issue appears clarified, new uncertainty immediately emerges through further questioning. They don't clear the thing, but what they do, they start asking more questions so that they can make it more complicated, more intricate. The discussion then shifts. It shifts from understanding to decision making. However, every possible action is weakened. They weaken it. Astrajan argues for doing nothing because it is safer, whereas Vladimir is going in the opposite direction. He postpones action by waiting for Godot. Although Astrajan briefly suggests that they should take action immediately, the idea is not developed. They don't conclude it. The idea is not concluded. It's not established completely. Therefore, the conversation circles between explanation, uncertainty, and delay. And all these conversation circles without reaching a final decision. Let me conclude it. If you see these lines are presenting a conversation that is moving constantly between explanation, uncertainty, and delayed action. Astrajan attempts to explain the situation logically, but fragmented speech and repeated questioning prevent complete clarity. Here we see Vladimir is repeatedly depending on Astrajan for understanding. Yet, even after explanations, doubt continues through further questions and changing opinions. There are so many questions, they change opinion again and again, and what the result they get, doubt is created. Doubt is strengthened. Clarity is weakened. The discussion finally shifts toward decision making. However, instead of action, Both characters, Mr. Vladimir and Mr. Estragon, return to waiting for Godot. So with the help of repetition, with the help of unfinished speech, with the help of shifting responses, we see that the passage is shown or remains unresolved, and it reinforces uncertainty, doubt, vagueness. It also reiterates or reinforces inaction, right? So still the same idea is going on: uncertainty and actions. They ask questions for clarity, but those questions, what those questions do, they create more uncertainty, they create more vagueness. I hope you have understood. If you have any questions, you can ask me, you can inbox me, but don't shy asking questions. Thank you for watching.